Hello.
Hello for the piece of puzzle with its exclusive flowers. And we are here with Koba De Necker from Two Chefs from South Africa. We personally have worked already together. That's why I really know what you're doing and what your portfolio is like.
And how it looks like.
And how it tastes like. But maybe for the people who don't know Two Chefs, maybe you want to tell them where you are located, what you're doing, for how long you are doing the business already, and what is your particular role in the business.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to talk to somebody else than my family. I truly love them, but 7 weeks with them is getting long.
You're welcome.
So I'm Koba, as you said, and I am the Assistant Operational Manager of Two Chefs Catering. So we are based just outside of Stellenbosch, and what we do is catering for all functions. We customize menus. If you have an idea and a budget, we completely understand and customize it to fit and suit your budget and needs. I think the biggest part for me is palate. Everybody's taste buds change. And if I just look at my current household situation, my youngest brother doesn't eat his mince with his rice. He eats it separate. So we all get that with brides and grooms and anybody who hosts an event. They all have their food preferences. And that's the important thing for us, is that our clients' needs do come first. So we started in Andrea and Herman are the owners of Two Chefs, and they started it about 9 years ago. Next year is the big 10-year reunion.
Wow.
And so we've done numerous big events such as the HSBC Sevens. We catered for the match in Africa. And our biggest market currently is weddings. And I think that is the thing that we're all struggling with now, is nobody knows when events will start again. You can't even go out and see your family in another province. So I think we're all realizing that events are much bigger than we realized. Something small like your Friday braai is actually an event. And so, yeah.
I think also this time has shown, and I mean, all major wedding events are about families, right?
That's
how
so true.
we need our families to meet and be together. I mean, it's beautiful to have technology like we have, and we Skype and we Zoom and we WhatsApp and whatever, but like nothing can really replace the meeting of people, and to hug each other and to really like speak face to face. And I think this is something that we realized, which we took, for granted. And I think everyone who was working in the event industry, it was just another job that they were doing. With the passion that they were like doing it, but it was just another family gathering that they were supporting in the one way or the other. But right now, I think everyone will really realize how important it is to actually be part of allowing people to meet in a special way.
Yeah, and when I actually can I remember when you were talking, the first time I actually got to know about you was on a very, very, very private event of one of my friends, and she invited actually the two of your chefs, the owners, to her home and cook for us. And I was just like, wow, that's actually amazing. And everybody enjoyed it. We had this direct interaction actually with the people that prepare the food. And not only that, you as a host can be set free and talk to your guests and actually can just relax. But I personally felt at a time it was a very special gift from her to us, actually, as guests.
I'm so glad you feel that way. I think for all of us at Two Chefs, we are currently 15 chefs. So our entire team is based out of chefs. So from A to Z, the person who delivers your food is a qualified chef. And I think that's very important for us because we all get together either around food or we have a drink together, and it's really a way to connect. And food is, especially the flavor and the quality of food, is so important to us. And we are kind of like a family, I would really say that. So bringing people together is what we all enjoy and love, and we all really gain something from it. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm currently missing, is going out to an event and seeing that. I don't know how to describe it. It's something in the air in an event. Everybody's like ecstatic and they're so happy to be there, and you just get your energy from them. And I think that's one of the things I really do miss now. Like, yes, I can cook and I cook beautiful food for my family and we do beautiful feast to table things, but it's still not a big event. And that's one of the things I'm really missing currently. But yeah, it's really great to be able, this lockdown period has really given us enough time to recreate our menus, and we're going in a total new direction kind of with our food. We're really getting some molecular things in there. We are really focusing on flavors and textures and just things that make you feel good in much different ways than you used to. So we are very excited for lockdown to be lifted, for the events to start.
Right. So that was actually a question that I had, because I mean, by now maybe everyone knows that I am not a huge fan of cooking, like myself, but like when you are off working, like for example now, and you have like loads and loads of time on your hand, like, do you enjoy cooking? Like, or is it something because you have done it like almost every day of your life when you had to do it? You just also are like happy to maybe let someone else cook, or not cook at all, maybe to just, I don't know, get the pizza out of the oven. Like, what is your personal, like, I mean, really take on it?
So I really love cooking. So I've been using this time, I've been practicing my scoring on my breads. I've been really looking at our menus. I've been getting the recipes down to the finest tea. I think something that's important for people to remember is we do events for large numbers. So that means your food quality has to be, your recipe has to be perfect. So that's something that's very important to us, is that the food has to be presentable and taste good as well. So I've really just been using this time to cook, and I can't complain at all. I get so anxious. I tried the other day to cook with my brothers. So learned them how to chop an onion and things like that. You do that, you do this. And at the end of the time, I was so anxious, just like looking at them, because not that it's wrong, it's just not how I was taught to cook. So I think that makes it very different and difficult. But they really enjoy it, and it allows us to spend so much time together without actually having tension between us. So we'll start cooking much earlier to get the dishes done, and then we can just really enjoy our dinner together. My mother is a clinical psychologist, so she's part of essential services. So she's been working through the entire lockdown. So I think being able to help her as well through this difficult time, when she's finished with work, having a beautiful meal presented, having all the dishes done, you know, it just helps everybody. And it also helps to put the pressure off the household. So of course we do things like, I've realized that if I cook a big batch of, for example, mince, because that is my brother's favorite thing at this stage, we'll freeze it. I'll freeze a few batches of it, which makes it just so much easier for those lazy days, because we all have them inevitably. So you have that puff pastry in the fridge, pop it out, make a homemade pie, sit back, relax, watch a movie, and really just enjoy this time. I think it's, even though it's so difficult because there's so much uncertainty, for us, all of us in the events and hospitality industry, we haven't ever had this time because this is season. And that's also the very scary part of everything, because it's currently season. We're going out of season now, but it's still such a major part in all of our lives. And we always try to get that time for our family. So I think that's something we're all really focusing on now.
I think, sorry, if I just say this, I think to have the luxury in the event industry to spend Easter at home was already something that a lot of people never had. And I don't want to say we are in a comfortable situation. I'm just saying the world has put us into the situation that all of a sudden we all had times with our families and like whenever we could. And I think someone also here, Stella, said food is family time. And it is right now. Like I always say, and I mean, I'm joking in the way I said, like, I feel that cooking is a waste of time. But usually I don't have time, you know, but I know that cooking a good meal takes a lot of time. And this is the time where you could actually interact and like just talk. And I think also in the past, when I hear how my grandma used to cook, and I mean my great grandma used to cook, they were like in the kitchen from after breakfast basically to prepare lunch, and then they had a nap, and then they basically prepared dinner. So food and the time that actually is spent on like making food has put a whole family together and kept them like busy the entire time.
The one day when we tried to make croissants, which didn't work out well, so we said, now we understand, and I love to cook. I must say, I love to cook. I don't know from who she got that she don't like to cook, but we understand why our grandparents or grandmas in particular spent the whole day in the kitchen, because that was so time consuming. I mean, we go to the shop and we buy a package of croissants and we just heat it up in the oven. You know, that's what it is. That's where the croissants come from. But to go through all the process, actually that takes 2 days to make a croissant, you know. That is, in a lot of cases, people don't really notice actually anymore. And I also think like very important what you said, that even if your brother maybe doesn't chop the onions correctly, but in maybe 30 years from now, he will tell his kids about this time. That was a very uncertain time, but he remember how he chopped the onions with you. And I think those moments, they will keep in our hearts, in our memories. I think this is what will stay.
We're going to take away even from the worst situation that we are in right now.
Yeah.
I think the craziest part for me is you always, if you read a story, if you watch a movie, you have these moments where people talk about quarantine and a lockdown and things like that. And I think in the back of my mind, I've always known that it will happen. It's inevitable, you know, but I never thought it would be in my lifetime. So I think that's also such a shock, is we're in it. This is what we're doing now. This has become the norm, and we should just really accept it, because there's really nothing we can do about it. And I think that also makes it really hard for a lot of people, because it's so uncertain. You know, we're postponing weddings are being postponed, but nobody knows when we'll be at level 1 or when events will be able to happen again. And I think that also makes it really scary for everybody, because we're so used to planning out our day and planning out our lives. And I know, because I'm one of those people, you know, you've got your diary, you stick to your diary, and it almost becomes a defense mechanism to say, no, I can't see you now, I'm busy. And now I have the time, and it's actually so scary, because what do I do with this time? So I cook because it makes me feel better.
Wonderful. What I would like to know maybe from you is, you as two chefs, how are you preparing actually now for whatever time comes after? Maybe are you allowed to cook and deliver right now? Is it something that you prepare for maybe smaller scale of future events? Like, what is it what you do right now for the current as well as for the future business?
So currently we are working actually on menus that are delivery friendly. The reason I say that is because food has a very important temperature, the danger zone, where it should be kept in. And I think that's the most scary part is you prepare this beautiful meal and you package it and you take it to somebody's doorstep and you leave them instructions. So if they heat it correctly, if they don't heat it correctly, it's kind of like up to you if you want to eat the food the way we suggest it being prepared and the way we would have prepared it for you. So I think that makes it very difficult for us. Again, just the uncertainty. But we are doing delivery meals. And as you know, Stellenbosch, the winelands are packed with restaurants and beautiful food places and bistros, which makes it very easy to dine out. So the competition now for delivery food is also really, really high, and everybody's delivering because it's what we should. It's the only way we are able to keep the cash flow coming in.
Yeah. Okay. I also, like, when I spoke to Herman, I'm not so sure like how much you are in the loop, but I also want to stress this. He said that you are actually also preparing food for underprivileged communities. Is that something that you can tell us more about?
So we have, a lot of times we are for example, with the event, we try and keep food out of the danger zone just to keep it as fresh as possible. And now what happened is the last week of before lockdown, we really had a lot of produce coming in, which we cooked to preserve it. And we're distributing it now, and we're working in close connection with some of our food suppliers, our fruit and veg suppliers, who are actually really awesome, going out to the market still 4 a.m. They're there, getting their bags of potatoes and tomatoes and delivering it. So we're distributing it to underprivileged areas, and we're working in connection with organizations that allow us to do that. I think the most important thing with working with organizations is that they actually know where the need is the biggest. So when you drive, you see a guy and you think, okay, let me help him, which is always great, but there might be someone who needs more help than we are aware of. So we're also doing that. I think it's very important we are all in this together. So we have to stand by each other. I know it's a cliche and we've heard it a million times, but it's so true. My sister has this beautiful saying, united we stand and divided we fall. And it's so, so true.
Wow, this is really true. I think we have to write that down.
And I mean, that's why we call our series now that we also do right now. We call it a piece of the puzzle. You know, why we call it a piece of the puzzle? Because we just think that everyone is part of the bigger picture. And without a puzzle piece, the whole picture is not complete. So I think everyone also should and can do whatever they can in their own capacity to be really together, to share, and to maybe make this time that we are in right now a little better for someone else by whatever they can. I mean, we are not in the major city. What we can do is with our time that we said, while we are not planning events and while we cannot sell any flowers, we can try to inspire other people by also listening to what you, for example, as Two Chefs or others are doing, because I think it's so important also, despite of the social distancing, that we don't distance ourselves personally, in the relationship that we have. And I think still a lot of people out there, they are alone. They maybe have not met their families for a lot of time. They maybe don't even have a partner with them or their parents. So it's so important to still keep everyone sort of at the same page and say, not everyone is doing great. And I think very few are doing good at this time. we all are struggling, and I think it's a worldwide phenomenon that we are all dealing with the exact same emotions, with the exact same fears, with the exact same situation that we are facing. Obviously, we are all dealing with it in a different way, and the stages that we go through might take, like, for the one longer than for the other, but eventually we can sort of all connect and say, yeah, exactly, this is exactly also my position I'm in, whether it's in the food business or flower business or any other business. Is, I think, right now something that we just have to do. We have to keep on communicating. And I find it like really amazing that even in this time where I think you could maybe have kept your produce frozen, you know, to use it maybe at one of your events that is coming up at the end of the year or something like this, you go out and actually also do something for your community, which I really honor. It's really great to hear.
Thank you so much. I also think it's important that we realize that even in our day-to-day cooking, we can actually improve. So I came to Nelspruit, where I'm currently staying with my parents, because I live alone in Stellenbosch. So I am an extrovert. So if I were to be alone for these 7 weeks, I would have really done up some severe loneliness, maybe depression. I don't even want to think about that. So I'm really blessed by the fact that I'm able to be with my family. But something that I saw when I came here is the food wastage. Like, even it's just a household, but you know, a lot of times the brothers don't necessarily eat the leftovers, and that actually goes to waste. And that's something that I really try to help out here at home, is really how can you recreate a dish that you don't feel like you are eating the same thing for a second time, but actually you are. So I think there's a lot of small ways we can really be creative and really embrace this and learn how to deal with it, and really just be thankful for the fact that we have a son and that we are able to go out and still buy beautiful fresh tomatoes. And I think that's the important part, is we have to see pieces of the puzzle to keep it beautiful. We have to think of all of these things to get the bigger picture. So I do agree with you there.
I love very much what you said with the inventing of the dish, like the food with another, like, whatever. But because, like, I see in particular with a young generation growing up with, like, expiry date of foods, you know, I can see that people just, they read, okay, the expiry date is tomorrow, rubbish bin, you know. I mean, I when I was a child, I not died because of eating a yogurt which was maybe almost expiring for tomorrow. I still healthy and I live, you know. I think this is such a, in one way, is maybe a good indication for people. Okay, how where's the position of this food item, but it does not necessarily mean it has to be thrown away. And I think that also needs to be changed a little bit in the mentality of a lot of people.
That's so true. I think initially when lockdown started, so people were scared. People did the panic buy thing, and it was evident. So you go out, you buy all these food, and a lot of it is pantry friendly or dry store goods. So, you know, your chips you eat tonight, and tomorrow morning you maybe indulge again. But there's so much fresh produce that people are not aware of how to actually prepare and preserve them. And there are so many methods that are so easy to do. And I think YouTube has loads of places where you can really log on and learn how to dehydrate your apples. I mean, make your own apple chips, make an apple sauce, use it in a dessert, or, you know, make a creme brulee with it. So I think this is just
Please, Karen, I can think like maybe I should get back into the kitchen. That's amazing. Can I ask you, Koba, where do you usually, I mean, on a normal base when you are working, where do you get your inspiration from, like the menus, or maybe even now that you have time on your hands? And I mean, nobody can travel right now, but are there big chefs around where you say like, wow, really, like we really look at so and so, or like, is it countries? Is it like locally what is grown out? Obviously, it's season, but like, how do you get inspiration to come up with your menus?
So it's a big part of my job. It actually all starts with the client. So an example is you inquire, and the first thing I'm going to ask you is for the date to check seasonality, because of course that has a lot of influences on the price, on the flavor, on the presentation, and on availability. And that also gives me a really good indication of your flavors, you know, what tickles your taste buds. And that's things that are important to me, because I have to create a meal. If you're a bride and a groom, it's going to be the first time you're going to sit down as a married couple and eat. And I wanted to represent both of you. I wanted to be special. I wanted to be something you'll remember. So I'll get a lot of inspiration from them. Okay, I had a bride now who really loves creamy spinach. So I was thinking of ways, how do you incorporate creamy spinach in a dish? So obviously it's creamy, which is great. So you have your creamy element, but you have no other forms of texture. So how do you get texture? You put it in something crunchy. And I think it's just a lot of inspiration comes from a lot of chefs out there. Food trends are, of course, a very big thing. But I do go out. I mean, Stellenbosch is just beautiful to walk down the streets, pop into a cafe. And I think a lot of times I really just sit and think of ways I can incorporate flavors and elements into a dish to enhance it, and not necessarily recreate the entire dish. Because every person is different, and that's the important thing, is each menu should resemble the person. And so it does make it difficult. But Andre and Herman and our entire team are beautiful. So there are beautiful moments when I run into the kitchen and I ask for ideas. Okay, I have chicken. What do I do with this chicken? I can't think of what to do with this chicken. And then, of course, everybody says, okay, maybe chicken and mushroom, or, you know, orange chicken, or what about a ginger chicken? And then I go back and I think about all these things, and then it just really happens. Things that clients tell you, you pick it up and you learn how to incorporate it and what they actually want and how to represent it. So it isn't always the easiest of tasks, but it is part of the job, and it's something I actually love because it's part of the puzzle. It's part of the process. So yeah, it does.
Of your art as a chef, you know, it's the creative side, like to come up with a menu. I mean, I think cooking is one thing, but to just come up with a menu with basically the plot for the scene is amazing. Like, and I think, I mean, I have no idea how you do this, because for me it would be such a struggle. But I think this is then also what sets caterers apart, you know, to really go out there, be creative, and really tailor make also a menu to a couple's character or the character of the event, and like to use the same colors. And I mean, as an event company, and that's why also I love that art only visually, like really that we say, okay, fine, we have, for example, I don't know, a green and white event. So
I just wanted to say that because this is what we are working on right now. When we come up with a color, so you could actually create an entire menu, one like color scheme, like all different greens, for example.
Totally. I think that's, I mean, if you look at spinach, I'm like in my total spinach phase now. So if I think of spinach, you can do spinach pancakes, which gives you something green. And then you can do a spinach oil, and you can do a spinach mousse, and you can do spinach dust, all giving you colors and flavors and textures, but still working on greens. So I was at the Eat Out Awards last year, and we had this dish. So they put it down in front of me, and it's just like carrots. So I'm like, okay, we're going vegan, embrace, let's go. And it was actually, the dish was textures of carrots. And it was so, so beautiful, because it just showed us that this is a carrot, and there are 7 ways we can techniques we can cook a carrot. There are so much more to food than we think, and I think that is the beauty of it. If you work on a color, my favorite color is pink, so I try to incorporate that in most things, but it's not necessarily something that goes with a green theme. So it really allows us to think out of the box and really be inspired by everything. So it really, I love it.
And I just ask, when you're talking, for example, about trends.
She's talking, you can see her passion.
Yes,
I like that.
Beautiful. Really, it's really enjoyable to talk to
you
you about
see it in your
food.
eyes.
And I usually don't like to talk much about food I eat, but but just tell people, maybe, I don't know if you say now trends, for example, and vegan. Obviously, I think like vegetarian, vegan, like this has like evolved over the last years. But what are like trends that you're seeing, maybe also from overseas or somewhere where you say, where you think like this is going to be really something that is maybe challenging also, but is going to be maybe influencing the catering or event catering industry?
So I think a lot of trends that we are seeing in the food now is coming through to restaurants, to the event side, because you can't, it's like fashion. You go to the shop and neon is in season, so you are forced to buy a neon jersey. So you go to the shops and vegan is in style, vegan is trending. So it forces you to think vegan. And it actually allows you to be so creative, because these are things that we've had. It might not even be cheaper, but actually, if you think about it, it can be. So I think if you look at a can of chickpeas, for example, you can bake and cook with your can of chickpeas. The water that you throw out, you can make a mousse. You can set it and make a jelly from it. It allows you to actually think mindful and not be wasteful towards food. And I think that allows us to really just utilize what we have. When I was studying, we were forced to really utilize. We were demarked on food wastage. So it was really worked into us as students, as chefs, that everything you waste is points. It is food. It's somebody's meal. So if you look at
somebody's money, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're your own boss, basically, or if you're working for someone has paid a full carrot. So if you're using only half of the carrot, it could maybe like also be used like the other half for someone else. And I'm just like hypothetically like saying, this other half, if you're gonna just waste it and not use it, it's really a waste not only of the resource itself, it's a waste of the investment, and it's by the end of the day not even beneficial to the end customer.
Yeah, but I also want to come to the source, because there's so many people that working in the agriculture industry, they put their heart out to produce this, to grow this food, and I'm always saying to waste this food is actually a dishonor to all those people they work there.
So true, so true. I think a beautiful experience I've been having with my brothers is the baking of bread. Something so easy, so simple. You go into the shops, you buy that loaf of bread, you go home, you toast it, you eat it dry, whatever your preference is. Now you're faced with the ingredients. You've got flour, you've got yeast, you've got sugar, you've got water, and to see how the process of just the dry ingredients, how long it takes to actually make a bread from already having the products in front of you. It just makes you realize that there's so much time and love and effort put into everything that we find on the shelves that we should really be mindful of it. And I think that's the important thing. I think that's the big thing that I'm seeing in trends now is simple food, healthy food, food with a lot of flavor, using different cooking techniques to enhance flavors and really just be the best produce, have the best produce, have the best flavors, and utilize everything you have. So I think food trends are incorporating into lifestyle changes, and I think it's actually good. I think I'm excited to see what's going to happen and how the effect of lockdown is going to stick to people being mindful of what they eat and how they eat. So I think it's exciting times as well.
You just said something I would be interested. You said to enhance the flavor, you use different techniques. Can you give us an example? Like, how do you do this?
How do you make a carrot taste more
Like, I don't know, maybe like let her give an example.
So I think let's use the carrot. So there are so many things you can do with a carrot. So you can puree it. A flavor that works amazing with carrots is nutmeg and allspice. I think if you just really go into your mother's dry store goods and look through all the herbs, you'll see what she has, and you can experiment. Maybe put in some oregano, and then you realize, but I don't really like it. And that's also a way that you can learn how to cook for yourself, what food preferences you have. So if you make a puree, a beautiful way of doing it, of course, is roasting that carrot. So all foods we have natural sugar in it. So by roasting it, you really allow those natural sugars to come out. And that's why you get the brown, for example, on braaiing, the brown scars or scoring you have when braaiing, that's actually sugars in the meat. So that enhances the flavors. So you can blanch and refresh, keeping that fresh crispness in a lot of things. And I also think tasting the food as it is raw is also really, really important, because it gives you an idea of the textures you're working with. And that enhances your meal so much more. Something crisp in a salad, having that crunch. That's why you have croutons in a salad, because otherwise everything would be green and taste the same and have the same texture. So I think really just exploring the options you have in your kitchen. So one day boil your carrot, the next day pop it in the microwave even, freeze it, eat a frozen carrot, and just really play with food.
Ice cream.
I love how you are adventurous, with food. I love your spirit when it comes to food. It's really amazing to listen to you. Nico, what is your favorite dish? Like personally, do you have a favorite dish where you say, "Oh my goodness, yes, I do this. I'm really in a good state of mind."
So that is a very difficult question. No, I do not have a favorite dish, but I would say I have a favorite flavor. And that would be really like earthy, umami, like really like deep flavors. So something I love is hummus. And if I actually look at what goes into hummus, I would say tahini, which is a sesame paste. That would be one of my ultimate love flavors, because it gives you something nutty and warm, and it really just brings out the sweet elements in a dish and the smoky elements. And I think it's a wonderful flavor mobilizer. You can infuse it with whatever, and it carries it so well. So yeah. And my favorite spice would totally be cumin. I love cumin.
What's the most challenging like product that you maybe have ever used and you said, oh my God, I hope that nobody's asking for it again?
Okay. There is ice cream, and I'm actually not an ice cream eater. But yeah, so Woolworths has a sorbet, and it's the lemon and lime sorbet. So what I actually do is I add some pepper to that, and it just brings out that sweetness of it, and it makes it slightly more tarty. So that would be, I think, something that I feel everybody should just like eat it in the morning. You'll feel better about yourselves. Eat it at night, eat it during the day. You'll cool off. You'll feel fresh. So yeah.
I'm a big ice cream fan, and I can just take like
Anytime of the day.
like I don't know if it's healthy or not. I guess it's not healthy, but it makes me happy.
I think that's also something important to remember, is that food, it's like flowers. You see that flower and you immediately feel better. You feel that color. And the moment you eat something, you release the endorphins and you feel good. You know, I can't say I am the world's biggest chocolate fan, but I'll never say no to chocolate because you immediately feel good after eating chocolate.
I think that's why also, I mean, during this whole time where we are all sitting at home, I think that's why also cooking is trending. I mean, really on everywhere where you see like people are cooking, not only because they have time on their hands, but I think also because once everyone had a very good meal, it makes you happy, you know. I mean, despite of all the craziness going on outside in like out of your door, but inside in your home, you just feel like, oh, okay, that was really nice, or give me another plate of this or something like that, you know. So it just makes your like little world that you are in a little bit more okay if you had a good meal.
Yeah. And I also think like the things people are sharing now, it's beautiful, you know, practicing something until you feel like you've totally perfected it. I know we had a situation when we had a hamburger night. My sister loves caramelized onions. So we ended up with toffee onions. And it's something she then practiced, and now she makes beautiful caramelized onions. And it allows you, not only you learn how to look at the heat on food, but it really learns you that you can't boil that pot of water for your pasta any faster than it's going. It takes that time. So it learns you to actually accept and breathe, maybe drink your glass of wine, just go to your stoop and relax. And I think that's good.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Maybe I have another question. What I was like thinking while you were talking about also teaching and what in what school you actually was studying? Like where did you study?
I studied at the ICA, the Institute of Culinary Arts in Stellenbosch. So yeah, very glad that's over, but also very thankful for all of the things that I was able to learn and all the things we were able to experience. And it really gives you the opportunity to learn so much more about things you didn't realize you have to know. And I also think their philosophy on the academics versus the practical is very important, because you have to know what goes the molecular structure of chocolate to be able to temper your chocolate perfectly. And I think that's very important. There's a lot of times where you think, okay, it's fine, you can do this because it tastes nice, but technically it's wrong because the food structure has changed, and it's a science on its own, but it's for me, food should always taste good. And that's something that's really important.
Do you think like we notice from the flower industry, for example, we have a lot of people giving like short term, like 1 day, 2 days, 3 day classes, and they teach something like techniques or knowledge they have. Sometimes also people from abroad coming to South Africa giving classes. So do you have the same thing like in your industry, or is this just not like a common thing? Do you maybe have to go out of the country to gain more knowledge, or go on courses there, or is there online courses, or how you improve, or how you get to know about new things? Like, how is it in South Africa?
So I think, yes, there are a lot of master classes, and we are seeing a lot of online master classes as well. But the important part is practice. So it's fine. I can teach you how to chop that onion, but you'll have to go home, you'll have to buy a bag of onions, and you'll have to chop until you can't see anything to perfect that skill. So I think that's the important thing is you can go on your 1 day course and you can learn a new skill. There's nothing wrong with that. Embrace it, learn something every day, but it's important to practice it and actually apply it in your daily life. So I think, yes, there are a lot of master classes and 1 or 2 day courses, and they do teach you a lot. But it's important to actually stick with that and apply it. And then once you know the rules, you can bend the rules.
It's like driving a car. Learn driving a car.
Learning by doing, yes.
Exactly.
Can I ask you a final question? Table culture. How important is table culture also, I mean, obviously as a chef, but then also when it comes to events? Like, is there something that you say, you know what, when people are setting a table, because by the end of the day, it's a combination, right? It's a combination of what you're cooking in the kitchen and like how the food is presented. Is there something that you say, you know, on a table, this is something that shouldn't be missed in order to really well present food?
I think, and it sounds ridiculous, but a plate really allows you to enhance your plate of food. You can use the same cutlery over and over again, that's fine, but use the correct plate. It just elevates your food to a whole new level. And I think it is important, as you said, the front of house and the back of house should work together to just have the perfect service. And it's been that way for ages. And I also think it's very sad because table etiquette has gone missing, and people aren't used to having a 3 or 4 course dinner and using the right cutlery. So I think, but it's also fine because there's a lot of new different styles of food coming in, and actually being able to interact more with the food. I think that's also important that we have a balanced thing. So you can have a beautiful, beautiful starter plated and everything, and then just go back to good old family style and really connect and say, please pass me the bread, and then have you tasted this butter? It's something so beautiful in that. So yes, it is important.
So the plate is
yeah, and sometimes we also feel this because, like, just for example, having some food and with colorful decoration on a just black plate or on a slate plate, I think that makes a whole lot of a difference than having this just on a round white plate.
Exactly. And the sizes of plates, I mean, we get huge plates now that look so beautiful, and it doesn't necessarily have to fit in with the decor, because at that point of time, the whole show is on that plate and the whole story is being presented in front of you. And I think that's also something the plate tells you is focus on the now. This is all about now, and it's okay.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I think we cannot say something better by the end of the day.
No.
That was a very big statement, and I think it was.
Yeah.
I learned quite.
Thank you so much.
The amazing thing at the end, so I didn't want to cut you off right here because we had a little bit of electricity that was just shut off. This is also the part in Africa that we live in. So we do not only have to deal with the lockdown situation, but also sometimes. But I just wanted to really thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. It was really refreshing to hear from you and your take on food and how you basically deal with food. I think it's just really an amazing job that you are doing. And I think everyone who goes to events, they are so much looking forward to the food always. So you are such an essential role and part of the success of every celebration. And I think sometimes because we don't see a lot of chefs in the kitchen, we see the food that comes out, but I think also we don't appreciate the people also behind the scenes a lot in our industry. So I also just want to thank you and actually all the chefs around the world who are doing the best that they can and that they love. Always behind the scenes, you know, because I mean, we see the waiters, we see the MCs with the couples, we see light and sound and obviously the plate, but I think the people behind the brand are so important. So that's why thank you so much for coming on. Again, I apologize now for the ending, but
it's fine. It's fine.
You have been appreciated, and I thank you for your time. Send our regards to Herman and Andre, and all the best for you. Stay safe, and we hope that things are going to get back to a certain normality soon.
Yes, I learned a lot, and I will definitely try the frozen carrot. I will do that.
We try
Make
the
your own ice cream.
flavors.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having human contact. It was amazing.
You're very welcome.
Have a stunning day. Ciao.
Bye.